Chapter 5. Beep, beep, beep! The alarm clock radio screamed into Melody's brain. She awoke with a start. She'd been having a strange dream. Something about a roller coaster and going over the top, to her possible death. It was very scary, but just a dream after all. Phew, she was relieved. The clock said 7 a.m. and time to get up. Time to get ready for her first day of computer training class with Pacific Western Airlines. She stretched and got up from her tangled covers. She padded barefoot to the bathroom, feeling the ice-cold ceramic tiles under her bare feet. Then plugged in her hot velvet rollers to heat. Running hot water into the sink, she began to wash her face and then dry it with a fluffy white hotel towel. Melody proceeded to put on her makeup, then dress in her tan pantsuit with a brown silk blouse underneath. She went to the phone call room to have some service. "Hello, this is room 617. Can you please send up your breakfast special?" "Yes, I'd like my eggs scrambled, raisin toast, orange juice, that would be fine." Melody hung up the phone. My hot rollers should be ready by now, she thought. She walked back to the bathroom and began to roll up sections of her long blonde hair. After getting ready, she enjoyed the breakfast delivered to her room. She called down to the front desk. "This is room 617. Is my taxi here yet?" she asked. "Okay, I'm coming." She grabbed a matching hairscarf and her purse and hurried out the door. She quickly turned the "Maid, please make up room" sign on her door and then scooted as fast as she could to the elevator doors. "I thought I had planned enough time for myself." She felt rushed. 5, 4, 3, 2... Oh no, the elevator's going to stop for someone on level 2. Melody had to calm herself while the elevator slowly opened, and purposefully for some other people to come in. A man stepped in. He was dark-skinned and wearing a white suit, carrying a black leather briefcase. "Good morning," he smiled at her. "Hi," she replied. The elevator descended to the main floor as Melody fairly flew out the doors. She hurried to the front desk. "Is my taxi still waiting?" she asked the attendant. "Yes, he's waiting over there," the hotel receptionist indicated, with a sweeping of her hand. Melody hurried to the black and yellow cab outside the hotel entrance doors. Climbing in, she relayed the address of her classes. "Oh, that's about 10 blocks, miss. We'll be there in no time at all," the cabbie encouraged her. He was another East Indian cabbie. Melody remembered that she had never met any people from this culture during her growing-up years in her small town of Woven, Manitoba. British Columbia had so many who had immigrated from India and Pakistan, just as her Mennonite ancestors had done long ago. It was a sunny summer morning in Vancouver. The bright light shone on the glass windows of the tall, high-rise towers to her right. Green trees dotted the pavement, and passers-by were all busy walking somewhere. She heard the steam blow at Gastown's favorite steam clock. Oh dear, she was supposed to be there now. Melody glanced at her wristwatch. "Here we are, miss." The cab pulled over to the curb. "That'll be $5.50, please." The cabbie extended an open hand. Melody gave him the money with a small tip, then opened her door to climb out. She looked up at the immense height of the Education Awareness Building. "Wow," she thought, as she hurried to one of the main entrance doors and pushed through its large revolving doors. Taking her address paper in her hand, she rushed to the elevator and read room 239 on the 16th floor. She went in with a few others and pushed the number 16 button. As she turned around, Melody was surprised to see the same man who had been in her hotel elevator, again, in this one with her. He also looked surprised. "Hello again," he smiled. She noticed his bright white teeth contrasting against his dark skin. They rode several floors in a whiz, much faster than at the Sandman's elevator. The doors opened swiftly, and room number 239 was right in front of her. The man in the white suit walked ahead of Melody and opened the door. "Are you also taking this class?" he inquired. "Yes, I am." Melody was surprised. I work at Pacific Western Airlines at Western Lake, she added. I also work for PWA, he said, but here in the city of Vancouver. I'm a baggage handler at the present, but I hope to upgrade my position with this course. They began conversing in a friendly manner. The classroom was filled with computers and students already were lined up at their desks. Right this way, please. My name is Miss Wilson. An older woman looked at them over her glasses. And you are? She continued. Melody Wolfe. I hope I'm not late. Melody extended her hand. Just in time, Miss Wilson shook her hand quickly. You can take the next 2 computers. My name is Brent Ozen, the man in a white suit introduced himself. He followed after Melody and sat down at the computer, next to hers. All right, class, Miss Williams commanded. I believe everyone is now here. On behalf of Pacific Western Airline Education Department, I would like to welcome each of you here. Let's get down to work. We have a full day ahead of us. Now, how many of you are currently using computers at your job? A few hands went up. I see that although it is 1979, most of you are not, so we will have to begin at the beginning. Your screens are open, so please move your cursor up to the PWA icon and double-click on it to open the DOS program. Ms. Wilson began to teach the basics of computers to her students. Melody was intrigued with the how-tos. She had learned how to type in high school and had learned how to use the teletype machine at work in Western Lake. Computers were just coming on site to replace many of the old machines. Time seemed to whiz by as the teacher showed her students one technique after the other. We'll stop for half-hour lunch now, class, Ms. Wilson broke in. There is food court on the 7th floor of this building. So let's all take a break, shall we? Melody stood up from her chair and took a big stretch. Brent was watching her. Would you like to join me for lunch? She invited. Melody looked around and saw the group was a good mix of men and women. All right, let's join the others, she smiled. They began to trickle out of the door and move en masse to the elevators. The food court had a variety of ethnic and fast food choices. Do you enjoy Polynesian food? Brent asked her. Yes, I do, Melody answered. My husband and I have been to Hawaii, and I really love the fresh pineapple on everything. Well, I'm from Fiji, and I find that it's the closest thing to my home style of cooking here. Unless you are invited to a Fijian home for traditional cooking, that is, Brent added. What's the difference in the food style? Melody was interested. It's the spices mainly, and some of the meat, as well as the way we cook it. They were standing in line at the Polynesian Palace buffet. I'll have combo number 3, Melody ordered. I will have the number 4, Brent ordered after her. Oh, let me please, Brent waved away her wallet as she was opening it to pay for her meal. Although she felt a bit uncomfortable about letting Brent pay for her food, she allowed it. They went to sit down with their trays at one of the many small round tables surrounded by silk-potted trees. Other groups of students from their computer class were all around them, so Melody relaxed. She bowed her head, as was her habit, and said a silent prayer of thanks for the food. She looked up to see Brent watching her. I'm from Fiji. You must be born as a Canadian, Brent queried. Well, yes, I was born in Manitoba. Melody proceeded to tell him a little bit about herself. They chatted back and forth when Melody began to feel strange electricity between them. It was as if they had known each other as friends before this. It was kind of nice to have someone to talk to who asked so many questions about her and paid her so much attention. Then the lunch break was over and they all headed back to class. Brent pulled out Melody's chair in a kind of act of chivalry. The afternoon classes went by as swiftly as the morning. The only difference was that when Melody looked up now and then, she seemed to notice what Brent was doing. And he was also glancing her way in between his typing. He noticed how pretty she looked. After the day of classes were over, the students picked up their things. Brent leaned towards Melody. Do you have any plans for supper this evening? He smiled at her. Oh, I was just going to go to my room in the hotel and maybe watch a movie on my TV tonight, Melody said. Well, since we're staying at the same hotel, how about joining me for supper in the restaurant there? I don't know, Melody hesitated. She was thinking that Richard wouldn't want her to do that. You don't have to worry about me. I'm not dangerous, Brent coaxed. Well, I do have to eat, I guess so, Melody agreed gingerly. He opened the classroom door for her and they took the elevator down. Once again they shared a taxi and soon were at the Sandman Hotel. You know, it's a beautiful evening. How about a walk before supper? Brent offered. All right, I'll go and get my runners. Melody went ahead. Be right back. Brent sat down in the lounge area in the foyer of the hotel. Sure is one pretty lady, he thought. Too bad she's married. Melody came down in a few minutes. She had changed into a long green skirt and a cream-colored tank top with cool leather sandals instead of runners. She had a light shawl around her shoulders. This is more comfortable for a summer evening, she explained. Brent whistled approvingly. Melody felt that strange electricity on her skin once again. She was feeling a bit guilty. But she told herself it was just a harmless visit with a fellow classmate. Brent offered her his arm, and as they walked down the street, they began to look in the windows of all the colorful, trendy Vancouver shops. It was fun. They meandered along until they came to the railway station restaurant. That looks interesting, Melody commented. Their menu was posted outside, and it listed a lot of seafood choices. Hey, would you enjoy eating here instead of back at the hotel? Brent asked. Well, I do love seafood, especially king crab legs, Melody replied. Well, let's go in then. Brent walked up the metal rail car steps and turned the brass handle of the door. Melody followed, and they stepped into a cozy rail car, which looked right like a scene out of an Agatha Christie movie. The waitress escorted them to a table covered with a white linen cloth next to the window. There was a small lamp glowing and a menu tucked beside it. The formal waiter came with a folded napkin on his arm and began to recite the evening's offerings with a distinct French accent. It all sounded so gourmet. The lady would like the king crab legs, Brent ordered for her. Melody blushed. She felt as though this was too much like a date, that she had no business being on. Would you like some wine with your meal? The waiter continued after taking down all the vegetable details. Just a glass of your white house wine would be lovely, Melody replied. I'll have one too, Brent added. So tell me about your life back at Western Lake. Do you and your husband own a house? Brent was making conversation. No, we're renting an apartment. We've only been married for 3 years. Melody knew she was talking too much. I was also married for a few years, Brent offered surprisingly. What happened? Melody was shocked. I don't know. We were just arguing all the time, and in front of our son, too, Brent answered. You have a child? Yes, a little boy. Leroy is 4 years old now, but I hardly get to see him. Just on some weekends. Brent looked sad. That must be so hard, Melody was sympathetic. It is, but at least we can see each other. Does your ex-wife live here in the city? Melody felt like she was prying. No, she lives in Abbotsford, a couple of hours' drive. I usually take a bus out, and then Leroy and we go to a nearby hotel. Sometimes I take him back to Vancouver. Brent felt relieved to share his story. Is there a chance that you and your wife might get back together? Melody asked. She had a gift for asking too many questions. I can't see that happening any time soon, as she has another guy in her life now, Brent answered. Say, here comes our food. He changed the topic. The male waiter in a short waistcoat was balancing a large silver platter of steaming dishes, while another waiter followed with a small round table to put it on. He began to serve their salads already dressed, then a basket of fancy warm rolls. 2 giant goblets of white wine were poured in front of them. Melody and Brent continued their conversation while enjoying bites of food from the platters of seafood, melted butter, and rice pilaf. It was a delicious meal. After a dainty dessert and a cup of espresso coffee, they were totally satisfied. They lingered over the hot coffee cups. Melody noticed the evening had grown dark outside. "I should probably go back to the hotel now," she said. "Richard will be waiting for a call. Tomorrow is going to be another day of heavy classes." "Yes, I agree." Brent waved his hand to the waiter. "Check, please," he commanded. They slipped out of the leather bench seating and walked out of the railway car. Retracing their steps back to the Sandman Hotel, they were soon outside the doors. "I think I'll stop in the gift shop and get a book to read." Brent walked away. "Thank you for the lovely supper. I enjoyed the conversation, too," Melody said. She walked towards the elevator door and was somewhat relieved that Brent had excused himself. She decided not to mention this to Richard when she called him, because she knew he might be jealous. It was innocent enough, she persuaded herself, but deep inside her conscience she knew it wasn't quite. "We've got to work things a lot harder," Temptra complained to Freya as the elevator doors closed behind Melody. "We haven't got a lot of time to get this thing done." "Well, don't blame me." Freya's foul breath was no laughing matter as the yellow sulphurous cloud enveloped Temtra's face. The two demons had been hanging around Melody and Brent ever since they met in the elevator that morning. They had done everything to make sure the timing was just right, and even sent bolts of electrical attraction around their bodies to help coax a sinful nature. "Lord Dark is going to blame both of us if we don't get this thing wrapped up soon, and you know he'll skin us alive if we fail him." Freya was remembering the awful sight of agony when Lord Dark had done just that to one of their fellow demons recently. He enjoyed every minute of the tearing flesh and the painful screaming till the demon was nothing but shreds in his claws. "Get Derma in on the act tonight and make sure they both have some memorable dreams to help things move them in the right direction tomorrow," Temptra directed. "Good idea. I'll get right on it." Freya blew off in a puff of smoke. After a good-night call to Richard, Melody turned out the lights and pulled her covers up tightly around her face. She felt really beat. But her mind decided to wander, and she kept thinking about the events of the day, especially this new man, Brent. She relived the time they had spent together. "I sure wish Richard would be interested in the things that I am interested in, as Brent seems to be. He's always working so hard and wrapped up in his hobbies that I feel neglected." "Yeah, that's it." Derma was pointing his black, withered fingers at Melody's head and filling her thoughts with negative ideas about her husband Richard. Too bad she wasn't smart enough to cut him off and stop entertaining these demonic ideas. Finally, Melody fell asleep, but the thoughts just turned into dreams, which kept going and going all night. She dreamt that she was living on a tropical island. She was walking on a beach, holding hands with a man. But the man wasn't her husband. It was Brent, the guy from Fiji. The next morning, Melody woke up with the alarm. She didn't feel rested at all. She felt restless. She hurried to get dressed and ready for the day. In her heart of hearts, she was anticipating visiting with Brent Ozan again. She wasn't disappointed because he seemed to be waiting for her in the classroom. He even pulled out a chair for her. This was noticed by a female student sitting next to Melody, who raised her eyebrows questioningly. In fact, all week, every day, Brent and Melody spent more and more time together, talking and getting to know each other. Finally, the week was over. It was the last day of computer training class with Pacific Western Airlines. Ms. Wilson handed out certificates of achievement to each student. "You've all done well, class," she commended them. "I will give your bosses a very good report of your efforts. I trust this will be the beginning of a better career for each one of you, and that it will serve you well as you advance within our company." "Let's go out and celebrate our graduation tonight," Brent suggested as they were leaving. It's my last night here, and I have to catch the plane back early tomorrow morning. Melody was making an excuse. She felt that she was beginning to have feelings for Brent that she, a married woman, ought not to have. She didn't quite trust herself any more. "Ah, come on, there's a snazzy little disco on Talmar Street, not far from this hotel," Brent pleaded. "How about a little dancing?" Melody, against her better judgment, allowed herself to be persuaded. They had to take a taxi over and descended the steps into a mirage of bright revolving lights and dark corners. The dance floor was a maze of lighted squares, flashing different colors, and the volume of the disco music was intense. "You have to be deaf to listen to this music," Melody shouted. They sat down at a little table, and a waitress came right over to take their order. "A banana daiquiri for me," Melody said. "I'll have a pint of beer," Brent added. Melody could feel the heat and the beat of the music pounding in her chest. There was a mass of bodies churning on the dance floor. Melody watched as one couple in particular seemed to really know how to move together. "They must have learned that from Saturday Night Fever," she chatted to Brent. "You know, the movie with John Travolta?" "Would you like to dance?" Brent was standing up and offering her his hand. "I guess I could give it a try." Melody accepted the invitation. She felt eyes staring at them as they moved onto the dance floor. I guess a blonde with a dark Fijian was a bit of a contrast, she thought. "Well, no one else knows me here." Melody let herself go to the beat of the music. Now the disco rhythm became hypnotic. "Bad girls, beep beep." Donna Summer's song was really hot on the radio right now. And talking about bad girls, Melody didn't get the hidden message. After dancing a while together and a couple of drinks, Melody felt somewhat wobbly. "Let's get out of here. I can't breathe," she shouted over the din to Brent. He picked up her shawl and draped it around her shoulders. She took her shoulder bag purse, and they headed back up the steps of the disco. Up out of the dungeon, onto the cool pavement of Talmar Street. "I better be getting back to my room now." Melody was feeling cold now. "Okay, but you just have to see the beautiful Vancouver shoreline on the way back." Brent took her hand and drew her in another direction. And she let him. Hold her hand, that is. They walked down the older cobblestone sidewalks around the Gastown area, then over a bridge until they were at a portion of the shoreline. From here you could make out the piers of the Canada Centre and Trader Vic's famous restaurant. The sun had almost set. Just a few wisps of pink and coral were left in the darkening sky. "I feel tired and my feet are sore," Melody complained, sitting down on the grassy edge of the beach. Brent plopped down beside her. I wish you were available, Melody." "What do you mean?" She looked at him with her big green eyes. Was he going to say what she had been secretly thinking and feeling very guilty about? "Well, I'm divorced, and I've been feeling very lonely lately. If you weren't taken, I would want to start a relationship with you. We have so much in common." "Don't talk like that, Brent," Melody responded. "Why don't you just try and get back with your wife?" "There's no hope for that now. She's with someone else," Brent said sourly. Oh, Melody looked away at the distant shore. The evening lights were getting brighter and brighter. In her mind, Melody was thinking how alone she had been feeling lately, with Richard spending so much of his time at the airport or on the radio control field with his buddies. They just didn't seem to have any real date nights like they used to either. Suddenly Brent was leaning over her and brushing away some stray hairs from her face. Melody, you might never have a chance like the one you have tonight." Melody's face began to grow warm with a blush, and the next thing she knew, he was stroking the nape of her neck. "This isn't right! This isn't right!" Her conscience was screaming inside her brain. But then he moved in and kissed her. She felt herself melt away from what was right and what was wrong. Finally! Success and accomplishment! A group of demons were clapping themselves on their spiny backs. A red glow surrounded them and also fell on the sleeping couple in the hotel bed beside them. We sure had to work hard to get them to commit the sin of adultery. But now that it's done, their doom is a sure thing, Temptra rejoiced. Let's go and announce our victory to Lord Dark. He's waiting for our report. Hell yes, let's go! Derma and Freya and the others moved through the hotel walls and lifted out of the air outside. They saw the fading Vancouver skyline mist over as they slithered into their own realm to meet their master. Melody awoke with a start. Where was she? She looked to her side, and suddenly the awful truth of what had transpired hit her memory like a heavy brick. Oh no, she moaned inwardly. What have I done? She saw the sleeping form of Brent beside her under the covers. She looked to the hotel curtains and noticed they were moving as though someone had just brushed by them. Then she felt a terrible icy cold shiver creep up her body. In fact, her whole body felt as cold as ice. There seemed to be an unseen fearful presence in the room. Wake up, Brent! She tried to jostle him and make him wake up. But he couldn't move. He wouldn't. Or he couldn't. He couldn't wake up. If Melody could have seen with the eyes of her spirit, she would have seen her human breath coming out in icy puffs, like when one is outside on a cold winter day. The entire room was coated with the frozen presence of the master of sin himself, Lord Dark. His blood-red eyes narrowed, and he had a satisfied smirk rippling across his lips. This is only the beginning, my dear, he said, although she could not hear him. You're all mine now. And he began to laugh. How could Melody know that because of her terrible sin of adultery, she had started on a road of such pain, such trauma? She could not know now, but with the little life that had just been conceived within her, she would know soon.